This is episode 2 of Travel Taven, and we're not too far from home today, but actually right now we're in Salem, Massachusetts at the burying point, and we are headed to a place that used to be part of Salem, Hawthorne Hill, Dr. Kirkbridge's dream, the location of Danvers State Mental Institution, Danvers State Hospital, Danvers Lunatic Asylum, whatever you want to call it. We're heading to it right now. Alright, so we've made it to Danvers. We are about 30 minutes, depending on traffic, outside of Boston, but we are here at what used to be the Danvers State Hospital. Today it's now Avalon Apartments, but you can see behind me the Kirkbride building is still the same as it was back in 1878 when this building was built. The shell is just the way it was. Inside has all been redone. But as you see, this was the main building for the hospital. And if you can imagine, or if you've ever seen the movie Session 9, they describe it as a bat with wings coming off this main building, with the most mentally ill patients down at the end of the wing, and the least mentally ill patients towards the center, towards the Kirkbride building.
All right, so this is what remains of the shell of these Gothic style state hospitals that actually were all over the East Coast around the turn of the 1900s. We're here today because this place is known to be pretty haunted. When this place first was developed into apartment complexes, a lot of the tenants moved out just because of strange activity going on. During the building of these apartment complexes, a huge fire broke out and actually caused the guy who owned the place to sell it. He wanted nothing to do with it after that. You know, there's legends have it that the security system went out at the very same time this fire started, but who knows? So we are inside the main building, the Kirkbride building, and as you can see, it's been completely redone. It's been turned into a nice little apartment building, but a lot of the original structures still maintain on the inside.
So this hospital was known for being very, 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 very overcrowded. Was built to only have about 600 patients and had 2,000 by 1930. But the problem that incurred with all that was that people were kind of lumped together and not separated correctly. And there's a very famous story of a girl, Marie, who comes here when she's 17 years old, suffering of depression, misdiagnosed for years, is actually in this facility for 20 years until one day she stops taking her medication, ends up being a Harvard professor, and comes back to the hospital to try to help out. But it was kind of the way things went around here. Patients were known to be completely naked, just running the hallways. Overcrowding was a big problem, and then patients' deaths were also a big problem, which is why we're headed to the cemetery right now. There's a bunch of unmarked graves over there, and we're gonna go check it out. So as you see the Kirkbride building in the background, we are actually headed down a trail that's not too far away from the main building, and it's gonna lead us to the cemetery. But here's the strange thing about Danvers Mental Institution. This hill, Hawthorne Hill, used to be part of Salem, Massachusetts, obviously famous for the witch trials. Well, this hill supposedly, depending on who you ask, had some of the hangings from the Salem witch trial take place right here on the hill. As we head down and towards the cemetery, you can kind of see how big this hill is in the background. So we are almost at the cemetery. It is right behind that brush right over there. But the reason why I stop here to point out this spot behind me, is that's Route 1. That's a very, very busy highway in this part of Massachusetts. And when this place closed down in 1992 and patients had nowhere to go, they actually would go back into the buildings. There's tunnels underneath the buildings, and they would be living in the tunnels and in the buildings. Cops would come, kick them all out. people just wandered off. This spot right here was known back in the day that you had to watch out. You never knew when someone might just come popping out of the woods and wander right onto Route 1, former patients from the hospital. So this is what you'll see as you come down the hill and enter the cemetery itself. Right here on the left is a placard marking the fact that this is the Danvers State Hospital Cemetery. But as we get inside, and the reason why this cemetery has such a creepy vibe is that there are no names on these headstones, just numbers. A lot of the patients, they weren't even sure of their names at death, and then also they're not completely sure about how many people are actually buried here, which is actually kind of a common thing in Massachusetts. Going back to colonial days, they would stack bodies on top of bodies on top of bodies, which is what you might have here as well. So let's go check it out. The lady that I was talking about, who was in this place for 20 years, ended up getting out, getting her degree from Harvard. Her grave is now here. All right, so these are the numbers stuck in the ground. As you see, that was 372, and this is 371, 370, and so on. These numbers go in the ground all the way up and down this hill. But as we come up the hill, and you still see what I assume are numbered graves kind of sporadically in the hill, there are newer headstones in the ground here. Not sure if these were redone or when these were put in. I really don't remember them the last time I was here. But that one is also with a number, so I'm not sure if these are new. They don't look too new. But there's also been a little bit of a plaque added. This is definitely new, you can just tell. With all the names of the ex-patients that they believed passed away and are buried on this hill. Obviously, some of these must correspond with those numbered graves that are on the hill in the background here. These are more of the numbered graves up and down this hill. This one's obviously been knocked down over here. And under these leaves, there's even more. So all those little headstones in the ground all look like this one here, which has been damaged. But the rebar is still stuck in the ground, holding it up, as this is 251. And as we continue down this hill, the storms from this past winter have really done a number on the trees here. But you see the numbered markers as we continue down. So as we actually walked into the cemetery, I said that these were a bunch of unmarked graves. And then we got in here and there are a bunch of marked graves. And it wasn't anything like I remembered. I've been here a couple times in the past, years ago. As you can see, there's names and dates on these graves down here in front of you. And they're actually newer markers. But what this is the replacement of what used to be here, which is now lying in a pile right over there. As you can take a look, and we're gonna get a little bit closer, and I'll show you exactly what this whole hill used to look like. It was a lot creepier. I'm not sure if they did this on purpose, but let's go check it out. So these are the new markers that you see in the ground. And actually these used to be standing up all over the hill. And as you can get a little bit closer here, you can see this is the pile of all the old numbers. These were all the markers that used to align this entire hill. All the way up to, this is 551 right in here. So there were hundreds and hundreds of these markers up and down this hill. Now they just lie in a pile up on the side of the hill. And I'm not sure if that's creepier. So that was Danvers State Hospital. And if you like that, please subscribe, like, share, tell all your friends so we can do more and more and more of these Travel Tavens. Follow me on all my social media, at Matt Taven on Twitter, the Matt Taven on Instagram, Matt Taven on Facebook. Go buy a t-shirt at Pro Wrestling Tees Matt Taven and just love me, because I'm Matt Taven.